What is going on, my friends? It has been a while since we've done battles of World War II, and we've kind of been doing this thing where I go over the first battle on sides of World War II or with different countries during that time. This time I wanted to visit the Eastern Front, the Soviets versus the Germans. I wanted to see what many consider to be like one of the first battles that started between these two, and well, one of the first battles would probably be the Defense of the Brest Fortress. Now, the Soviets were taken by surprise because it had been a couple years of peace since they split Poland, and they weren't really expecting Germany to go back on their secret deal where, hey, I take over Poland, you guys get half of it, and then we just kind of live peacefully next to each other. Now, the majority of the Soviets did not see this coming. The only reason why I say the majority is because if you were on the border at a future battle on the first day, you probably had a feeling that something might happen, but you wouldn't report about it because, you know, nobody would believe you. Because if you were, let's say, at Brest Fortress for several weeks before this battle kicked off, you would hear German troop movements on the other side of your border for just weeks on end. We're talking vehicles and troop movements, and it just sounded like they were staging for something special, but you weren't going to report it. Your commanding officer would be like, ah, there's no way. We signed a deal with them. They're not going to do anything. They'd be stupid to do something against us, you know? So the battle kicks off. It's June 22nd of 1941. Now, this battle, German leadership, it's kind of like the thing with the Battle of Westerplatte that we talked about quite a while ago. They expected this to only take a few hours. This little battle was supposed to take 12 hours according to German leadership. This took about 8 days, almost 8 days. Really, it's considered 7, June 22nd, June 29th, but hour differences, it's about 8 days of battling. And this fortress would house 9,000 Soviets and about 300 families. Now, the families are actually very important to this battle because as the Soviets would fight, they wouldn't really have the medical personnel or the helping hands to keep this battle going. The families would actually step in to help out. And on the German side, you had about 17,000 Germans and about 2 panzer divisions. Now, the Germans were led by a very famous commander, Fritz Schlieper. Now, the reason why I say very famous is because this guy headlined a lot of special attacks when it came to Poland and France. He was there for the capture of both of those countries and played pivotal roles with his panzer divisions on taking them over. So he was arguably one of the best German commanders at this time in the war, and so it was kind of going to be over for the Soviets as soon as it began, because this dude had all the support he needed from Hitler, and he knew what he was doing and what he needed to do to get the job done. Now, this fortress was seen by the Soviets as being very important because it guarded a river and a couple of bridges that, if the Germans could get a hold of them, could just streamline their way to Moscow. So they wanted to hold this spot as long as possible, but it didn't really matter all that much because really all the defensive line of the Soviets pretty much fell in the first day. Like this was pretty much the only group of Soviets along the border that lasted more than 24 hours. So really, Germany was already on its way to Moscow, even though they were still fighting here. But it does not take away the importance of this battle because it has shown a lot of Soviet bravery and a lot of Soviet stubbornness to not give way to the Germans. Like, so it was crazy. Now, 22nd June, the shelling would start. For about a half hour, there would be shelling from panzer tanks and artillery, and it would cause massive damage to the fortress, cause a lot of Soviet casualties right at the start. And now, some of them, during all of this mess, would be able to leave and flee from the battle area, but the majority of the Soviets were caught and trapped, because as soon as the shelling had stopped, German infantry would start to storm the fortress. Now, not having a proper line of defense anywhere because of the chaos going on, they still managed to fight them back, creating little bitty pockets here and there of machine gun nests that they could sit in and sit with their Mosin Nagants and just pick off Germans as they were coming in through the fortress, because this is, you know, very close combat between the two forces. Now, after the first day, there would be about 281 German casualties right off the get. Now, we're kind of unsure about Soviets at this time, but we do know that after a couple of days of fighting and a very tough attrition between the two of them, as they would just go back and forth for a couple days straight, some of the fortresses would start to fall, and roughly 4,000 to 5,000 Soviets would be captured. And after this, a couple of days of fighting, there would be over 360 German casualties. So German casualties are really starting to pile up compared to Soviets, although the Soviets are taking massive losses, because with the artillery shelling that happened on the first day, it hit a lot of the supply points in this fortress. So they're already running low on ammunition because a lot of it got destroyed. And same thing with food, and same thing with medical supplies. So they are running dangerously low on a lot for as many people they have stationed there. So because of this, on the 26th of June, they try to break out of this fortress and try to do a counterattack on the Germans, but it would go horribly wrong. They could not break the German line. But that wouldn't be like the main reason for the failure of the Soviets, because since they couldn't break the line, now Fritz, having been tired of this constant war of attrition, because the casualties on the Germans are starting to pile up and they are way past their 12-hour period at this point, would begin a siege. And they would just hold this siege. They're like, eventually they have to run out of supplies because we destroyed a lot of it. And that's kind of what this last second attack was for, was trying to break that line, break the siege, get some last second supplies, like steal some German machine guns, like some MP40s, or just something that they could use to continue this fight, because they were set on holding this fortress as long as possible. But the North Kobrin fortress would eventually fall on this same day too. So on this same day, 26th of June, you lose a northern fortress. You try to do a counterattack, which also fails to break a line. And Fritz has had enough of this battle and has started a siege on you. That way, eventually you run out of supplies and you have to give in to him or just get killed. And, you know, that's kind of how it went. Now, it would be the latter, really, because although a lot of Soviet defenders would surrender, a lot of the stubborn ones inside this fortress would end up being bombed again, as 3 days after the start of the siege, the Luftwaffe would start bombing again. They would drop a couple of raids on this fortress and end up killing even more Soviets and forcing the surrender of another 360 of them who were in another fortress. And after that bombing, they would send in some more German infantry with flamethrowers and then just some regular infantrymen to start clearing out this fortress room by room. Now, as all of this fighting was going on, like I said, the families played a very critical role. A lot of the mothers and wives in the families would start to be the medical personnel for the Soviets to keep them in the fight. And then a lot of the children would be the people who could go into these destroyed medical areas and squeeze through the debris to collect any spare ammunition that they could. And it would be their job to load magazines and load belts for the machine guns. That way the Soviets could continue the fight. So really the 300 families that were in there with the military personnel are the reason that this fight was able to last 8 days. Now, at the end of this fighting, Germany would lose 429 killed and over 600 wounded. The Soviets, though, almost 7,000 POWs, and then roughly 2,000 more would die in this battle. Now, you may be asking, how did we know this? Well, because of the siege taking so much longer than what it was supposed to, the 12-hour window, and all the German casualties that had started piling up after the first week of this battle. After the first week of Barbarossa's launch, there would be over 8,000 Germans killed. And a lot, like 5% of them are from this one battle alone that wasn't even supposed to last a day. So, German commanders kind of mad right now, and they need to have a reason from Fritz. What happened? Give me a detailed report. Now, as these copies of the report are going out to commanders, one of them would get lost and would be found in Russia, and we would have a detailed report of what happened at this fortress and what happened to all the Soviets that were there. Now, many Soviets sent to POW camps would not make it, including one of the commanders who was actually Jewish too. But it really showed the strength of the Soviets and how much they did not want German occupation, and that this could really be seen as a foreshadowing sign that Germany would not win this war against Russia, because we just saw how stubborn these defenders were. No food, barely any medical supplies or ammunition to fight back, and they still lasted 8 days against a German onslaught, and with thousands of troops and panzer tanks, and like no support from any other Russians because the line had already collapsed behind them. So this was really telling for how the future of this war would play out. But really wanted to share with you guys one of the first battles on the Eastern Front. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe. Comment future battles of the Eastern Front you would like me to go over in the future. Kind of want to get back into doing more battles than what we do heroes of World War II, even though both series are very fun and I enjoy doing both of them. I'll see you guys later.